welcome to the Sporticos Football Stories podcast. Today is Thursday, the 18th of July, 2024. I'm Craig Resnik-Hanson, and today I'm joined by Russell Osborne from the Three Lions podcast. On this episode, we get to hear Russell's tales of being at Euro 2024 in person, his thoughts on Gareth Southgate, the future of England, and much, much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my chat with England fan Russell Osborne. So today I am overjoyed to have Russell with me from the Three Lions podcast. I think today, I don't know if you're prepared to offer this service, but it's going to be a little bit of a therapy session for me, I think, because Sunday's defeat in the Euro 2024 final against Spain was by far the worst feeling I've had as an England fan so far. So I'm in my mid-30s, and me and my mates were talking after the game about, you know, will we ever win anything in our lifetime? And sort of, we've got so many good players now. We're coming so close each time, but still we're not doing it. And I'm sort of reaching that. I'm approaching that phase where my dad and several of my friends' dads were the same. Where, you know, you're a kid and you're really excited about England and, oh, let's go to the pub, watch the game. And, you know, when you're a teenager and so on. And they're just like, oh, what are you bothered about all that for? There's no point in all that. You know what I mean? England never going to win anything. And I always thought I never liked that. And I never got it. But now I'm sort of, I need someone to talk me down from getting to that, basically. So I'm getting close to giving up completely. So what would you say? How are you feeling right now after that defeat? Is there any optimism to be had?
Do you know what? In truth, I'm numb. I'm drained physically and mentally. I need some sleep, proper sleep. It's still a bit raw, really. It's similar feelings to Euro 2020. As the final went on, I almost had, it wasn't like flashbacks to 2020, but I could almost sense I felt the same, in a sort of strange way, as if like, oh, I've been here before. I remember this feeling. I mean, you talk about sort of the age you are and what you've seen. I can take myself back to 1990. Sort of many of my friends, obviously the same age, and we all remember that. And I remember the semi-final there and the pain as a child. I would have been 12 years old then, and I remember being in tears when we missed those penalties and were sort of knocked out of the World Cup. And the sort of the emotions and the pain don't leave you. You kind of, I don't know, as you grow up, you learn to sort of deal with it in different ways. And I guess, like as you say, your father will say, "What you're doing?" Still sort of pinning your dreams and hopes to England, but that's what it is. It's the hope, isn't it, that one day we will see an England captain emulate Bobby Moore and an England manager emulate Sir Alf Ramsey in being that player or manager to once again lift a trophy for England. And we all want to witness it in some way, shape or form, be it in the ground, seeing it happen, or on the TV, in the comfort of your own home, or down the pub with your best mates who you've been watching England games with since however old you were, and sort of kicking around in the playground pretending you're Gazza or Michael Owen or Wayne Rooney. We'll share these dreams of seeing England do well. We just have to keep on dreaming and keep on believing, and that's something that England fans we do continue to dream, and it will happen one day. When, who knows, but it will happen.
It'll be 60 years by the time the next World Cup comes around. Do you have enough optimism about this group of players? I mean, obviously, a big question mark is over who's going to be the next manager, which we can come on to in a little bit. But do you have optimism that USA, Canada, Mexico could be the time?
Do you know, World Cup is obviously it's a much bigger competition this time around, I believe. The fact it's spread over three countries. Um, I'm not convinced by just the whole this particular upcoming World Cup. I have to be honest. Um, Obviously, as you say, manager will have changed. The maybe the nucleus of the team will be the same, but there will be players who I perhaps think won't be part of that. I mean, your likes of your Walker, Trippier, I guess, Henderson. I've no doubt has probably played his last game for England now, and with a new manager coming in, will he sort of sweep the room clean, and will there still be like a Harry Kane? I don't know. I mean, just looking at how he's been this last tournament, how his career's gone, bless him. Whether he'll still be wanted as England captain, or whether he'll just think, do you know what, I don't think I can do it for another couple of years. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd be more confident about the Euros following the World Cup. I think on home soil than the America World Cup.
What do you think about the idea that we might have missed our chance when we were closest? Because we've lived through, the eras of Hodgson and Capello and Ericsson and all those times when even when we had really good players, yeah, you still believed, but like I always felt like we'd just go out in the quarters like we always did, or in the last 16 or something. It's only really under Southgate, and he's a divisive figure, and say what you want about him, but it's only under him that I've actually believed we might actually win this. Do you think we're like in danger of sleepwalking our way away from our finest chance, and it could be decades until we're back in this position, or do you feel like it's only gonna get better? The nucleus is there, like you said. There's still good players coming through. I mean, I guess I just need to be lifted up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as I say, the nucleus of players is there. The spine of the team predominantly will take us to the next World Cup. Obviously, all injuries notwithstanding. It's the way now that the team moves on under a new management that it's just a subtle transition, that there's no major no one comes in with like a massive axe and just carves everything up. It needs to be just a continuation of what Gareth has done, because what he has done has been amazing. Whatever happens going forwards now, be it the Nations League for the next campaign or the World Cup qualifying, everything that happens in the immediate future should be built on what Gareth Southgate has already established over these past, 8 years there at the helm. And as long as that is done properly, and the FA sort of appoint the right person who continues the England DNA, to use that phrase, then I think we should be in good hands. That would be my way of looking at it.
Who do you think should be next from the names that are being bandied around? Howe, Potter, Pochettino, Tuchel, Carsley. Who do you think can continue to foster that DNA and that positive feeling and continue Gareth's good work? Because I agree with you. I think it has been good work.
Yeah, there's a list out there. So I mean, obviously, as soon as the announcement was made, the bookmakers came out with all the options, really, didn't they? And they're all the names that you would expect to be in the frame. I have to be honest, that if I was to just sort of go through them, Jurgen Klopp, yes, he's probably capable of doing it, but I would be cautious of someone who has said, "I want a year out. I will try and take stock and to go and have a bit of time to myself after however many years with Liverpool. He wants some time to himself, but to then sort of say, oh, hang on a minute, I'll have that England job when he's just been out for 2-3 months." And there is a Liverpool angle as well. The Liverpool and England angle can be a little bit touchy. So I'm not sure it'd be Klopp. Eddie Howe, I think, is a perfectly credible option. He's still young, and in the Newcastle job that I feel he's quite comfortable in. He's obviously taken them to Champions League football. To use another phrase, that he's got a project going on. He seems to be at the moment. Newcastle's owners are happy with him. I think he would be. I think might be a little bit too early for him to take an England job. He's certainly one for the future, without a doubt. Graham Potter appears to be the favourite, but I'm cautious of him as well. Despite what it appears he's capable of, he's obviously done well with Brighton, had a patchy with Chelsea in the way that all finished. But the fact he's been out of work for 12, 14, 16 months, whatever it is, I find it strange that he would be, or that any large major organisation, regardless of what that organisation is, would suddenly take someone who has appeared to have been out of a job for that period of time, and then all of a sudden say, do you know what? You can have the highest job in English football.
And the most pressurised job in the world, you could argue.
Yes. I can't see how you would say, well, what have you done in the past 14 months? Where have you been? Unless there's been talks behind closed doors that no one knows about, but then I would have thought that may have been leaked out in some way, shape or form. I think with Graham Potter, I'd rather see him back in a club job to actually show what he's possible of doing again. And then we can go down the foreign route. We've been down there twice before. You could say once it was a success with Sven to a certain extent. Capello maybe wasn't the right choice for the time, but then Tuchel, Pochettino, there would be a lot of uproar or a lot of talk if an Argentine or a German was to take on the England role. It's probably a much deeper conversation than I'm maybe prepared to have just now. Pep Guardiola, I believe he's got like a year left on his contract at City. He would be incredibly expensive, I believe, for the FA. I know the FA like to keep their sort of purse strings fairly close to their chest. I'm not so convinced about Guardiola. There's a real big change between, obviously, I'm stating the obvious, really, isn't there, between domestic football and international football. That these managers, they like to be hands-on day in, day out. And for an international manager, you only get to see your players at an international break when it comes round. So it'd be interesting to see how your Guardiolas and Pochettino, Tuchel were to deal with that situation. And the other foreign manager, his name probably always comes around, is Mourinho. I wonder if the FA would be a little bit like they were back in the day with Brian Clough and think, do we really want all the potential aggro that comes and baggage that comes with Mourinho? Which kind of leads me down to my option would be Lee Carsley. May not be the name that I know. It's on the the bookies list, but it may not be the name that maybe people just on the periphery of football supporting would know. But Lee Carsley's the current under-21 manager. He's been sort of there for quite some time, knows the, here we go, the England DNA. He's been at St George's Park, has probably, he's conversed with Gareth in his time there. So there's that sort of almost a handing of the baton to him, the players that he's had under the under-21s, where he won the under-21s Euros. He had the likes of Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon with him. And if he was to be selected, he's got 6 games the back end of this year: Ireland, Finland, and Greece, home and away in the Nations League. Without sounding arrogant, they're games that I would expect England to win, regardless of who was in charge. But it's sort of 6 games, 4 months, 3 months that he can show what he can do. Whether it would be like an interim period, which remember is what Gareth Southgate had. He had four-game interim period before he was officially taken on. But I kind of think that would be a good opportunity for him to sort of show what he can do. If it doesn't work out, then the FA can then maybe go back to the drawing board in time for the World Cup qualifiers that will start sort of March time next year. So that would be my personal sort of starting point, Lee Carsley.
I'm with you. I think it wouldn't be the sexiest choice, and a lot of the naysayers would definitely freak out about it. But I think it actually would make a lot of sense for all the reasons that you mentioned. But let's go back to Euro 2024 just briefly. We don't want to touch on it too much. We want to leave it in the past and move forward. But as someone who was out there in Germany, what did you make of the performances in the tournament overall? You know, what did you see as the pros and the cons of Southgate's last tournament in charge when it comes to matters on the pitch?
Well, I mean, it was there for all to see. Those first 3 games weren't good at all. It was hard work watching those, but at the end of the day, we did qualify from the group, and we qualified top, which would have been the main objective before as soon as qualification was assured, they would have said, right, the main objective is qualified sort of top of the group. So job done, really. And in 6 months' time, no one will remember how those group games really went. It's just probably the final and a few certain events that and goals that happened along the way. Now, obviously, the way the sort of momentum changed in those knockout games against Switzerland and the Dutch, and this is how much lack of sleep I've had. I can't remember now who we had in the quarterfinals, but Switzerland, that was
I did
it.
the same thing the other day. That was the one I forgot too. I was like, who was the one? Remember the other day when we were going mental? Who was that?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you kind of go back to Gareth. You don't want to point sort of too much at him, but it's kind of what we've already known in the past, that maybe he's a little bit more sort of reactive than proactive with regards to making changes. But then you look at some of the changes that he made, and they were the changes that changed the direction of those knockout games. So what he did was successful on the pitch. So it's a tough one to really sort of to call out. We'd all love to see England have been more attacking and more on the front foot, more just trying to get that early goal and push for that early goal. But it never really sort of materialised. yeah, that would be something to take from that. But then obviously that was down to Gareth, and as we know now that he's no longer there. So you'd think that the thoughts and ways of the next manager may be different.
Yep, hopefully a sort of nice balance between continuation of the good stuff, but a slight tweak. I know Carsley will have the DNA side of it and all the good stuff in terms of the atmosphere and the culture and everything, but he also seems to be quite a lot more proactive and attack minded in terms of his tactics. So I think he would be the perfect choice, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the coming days and weeks. But let's touch on the stuff that we really want to hear about now, which is the fan side of things. I've got a few questions about this. So I was over there in Germany myself for the first 2 weeks of the tournament. I was in Stuttgart because that is where my wife's family is from. So we go there to visit quite a lot. I managed to get to
Okay.
the Mercedes-Benz Arena to see two games, Slovenia versus Denmark and Ukraine versus Belgium, both of which were very cool. It was really awesome experience. My first time at a major tournament, international tournament. I'm sure this wasn't your first time, but tell me a little bit about the atmosphere in Germany. I know that we've had sort of a bit of a barren spell for fans in terms of international tournaments because we had Qatar. You can say what you want about these choices, but that there was definitely sort of issues with each of them, right? You had the Qatar thing, then you had before that you had the sharing it across 12 countries or whatever with COVID. Then before that you had Russia. So without sounding too, I don't know, Western European specific or old school traditional football, South America, Europe specific, it's been a while since we've had a tournament in a country which you might say is very well equipped to deliver a tournament. So Germany is that. But I'm sure there's been pros and cons. Tell me, what was it like being in Germany for Euro 2024?
Yeah, it was. Let's just say it was the first sort of tournament that was an overseas tournament that was accessible for England fans, and let's also remember Scotland fans as well. It's accessible for them as well. They went over in their thousands. I
Since
personally I didn't
2016,
go.
I guess. I can't, where was
Yeah,
2016? I can't remember, but I seem to remember it being.
well, 2016 was in
There we
France.
go. Much more
Yeah,
realistic. Again, accessible, big tradition, good stadiums, and so on.
yeah, with decent infrastructure. Yeah, trying to put 2016 out of my mind, but someone always brings it back. Yeah, no, so what did I do? I only went to one game in Russia, and that was in Kaliningrad, which was the little enclave, I believe, just by sort of Latvia way. Didn't go to Qatar. Went to the ones in Euro 2020, but I mean, it's a home tournament. It didn't have that same feel as an overseas tournament does. So the chance to get to Germany was always on my radar. I'd been sort of saving for it for quite some time, plotting my routes as to how to get to which games. In the end, I flew in and out or got coaches in and out for the first five games. I then flew out to Dortmund with no return ticket. I kind of explained to my wife, I said, look, if we lose, I'll be back hopefully by the time for the weekend. If we win, then I'm going to stay out. I'll be making my way to Berlin and be home by some
Hey.
way, shape, or form. And she just sort of looked at me and she goes, right, okay, and kind of left it at that. And I said, you just keep an eye on the score, and you'll know where I am. But being there, I personally I felt that it was a well hosted tournament. The Germans have got the infrastructure on the whole. The stadiums are great, to be honest. They're sort of what you would expect for a tournament of this stature. I kind of went to each one, and they were all slightly different, each ground, but they all had their sort of individual characteristics. The only thing that I kind of thought was a bit of a pain was all the grounds that I went to, they're not sort of fairly central to the city. They all involved a half-hour train journey or coach or tram journey from the centre.
Yep, Stuttgart's the same as well.
Was it?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I didn't. Obviously, England didn't play in Stuttgart, so I didn't see that. But Gelsenkirchen was a fair distance away, and Cologne, Dortmund. So, I mean, the chance to get to go to Dortmund Stadium
Oh,
was
that must have been amazing.
fantastic.
Were you in the
Yeah.
yellow wall stand, the big one?
No, no, that was the Dutch occupied that stand, so you could see it, you could get a good view
Wow.
of what the yellow wall looks like, and it must be fantastic when Dortmund are at home on a Champions League evening. It must look really good, and produce a great deal of noise. The the stadium's all well equipped. The stewarding appeared to be fine. The ticketing situation to purchase tickets through the England Supporters Travel Club and sort of in turn, which went to UEFA's ticketing portal, appeared to work fine. I personally had no issues.
Yep, me neither. The UEFA ticketing app thing was actually really efficient, I thought. I'm hoping to go
Yeah,
to Canada for the World Cup because we've got some friends who live there. I'm not going to go to all three countries, but just go to Toronto. And I'm hoping that FIFA have something similar. Hopefully, they'll have an
yeah,
app like that because it was really good and really useful and easy.
yeah. I believe the Qatar World Cup had something similar. So FIFA UEFA obviously working in tandem in the way that they organise their ticketing situation. So that worked well. My only downside would be Deutsche Bahn, the German
I
rail
wanted to
system.
ask you about the travel because we heard a lot about it, back in England since I've been back and while I was out there as well. There's so many stories and Twitter was full of videos. Did you get caught up in any, 2 hour waits or anything?
I did. The first game in Gelsenkirchen, the Serbia game, which seems so long ago now. Um, Fortunately, I wasn't involved in the training that I'd been part of a coach trip for that one, so I heard all these stories, and I kind of thought, blimey, I'm glad I wasn't involved in that. And then obviously I was then sort of pitched in with it for the Dortmund the semi final. We must have sat on a platform for probably 2 hours, or we were walking between platforms with sort of no communication from any staff. There was an ice train, which is one of the German high speed trains, sat on one platform. It had people on board, but it didn't move, and it didn't move in all the time that we were sat on these platforms. And as sort of the evening went on, or I should say the early morning went on, we're finding out that there was people I knew on that train a couple of platforms away, and they were getting no communication whatsoever, and were told that they couldn't even get off the train. The windows were steaming up inside there, which yeah, well, it wasn't good. I've since read a news article that has said that sort of Deutsche Bahn have realised that there may be a problem with their train system. If the English are complaining about it and they complain about our own train system,
You're
then
in
there must
trouble.
be a problem. Yeah. So I think that was maybe my only gripe about it. Yeah, but it's not to say every train I got on was didn't work. That was just the one instance where it was quite painful. But on the whole, I think they've done a great organisation for the tournament.
You mentioned how the yellow wall might look with Dortmund fans in there on a Champions League night, how what an amazing atmosphere there might be. Speaking of fans, you encountered then, let me think, Slovakian fans, Dutch, Swiss, Spaniards. Oof, well, who else did we play now? I can't remember in the groups. Slovenia.
So yeah, Denmark.
No, sorry, not Slovakia. It was Slovenia, wasn't it? Oh no, what
Yeah,
Slovakia
it
too in the
was.
last 16?
That's right. Slovenia,
Slovenia,
Slovakia,
Denmark.
Switzerland.
So you got to experience a lot of different opposing fans. The only perspective I could bring to it was in the two games I went to, I was in the Slovenia end for one and in the Ukraine end for the other, and both were, full of voice and very cool. But I thought in particular the Slovenia fans were very impressive. I really loved being in their end for that Denmark game. From all the fans that you saw, I guess who impressed you? I mean, not only I guess in the games, but did you also encounter, the famous hordes of Turkey fans and the orange horde of the Dutch? What did you find impressive in terms of opposing fans?
Well, I think the first thing to come to mind, I think when we went to, was it Frankfurt, I believe, for the when we played Denmark. Someone will correct me if that's wrong. To see a mass block of red, all the Danes there together, they were sort of jumping up and down and making a lot of noise in that game there. Especially when they scored, that was quite deafening, I have to say. Um, the you mentioned the Dutch in Dortmund. They must have outnumbered us 4-5 to 1. Outnumbered the English. There were loads of them, but obviously it was fairly close to the Netherlands, Dortmund. So loads of them were just piling across the border just for the day out, really. Obviously, if they didn't have a ticket, they could go to the fan zone and watch it on the big screen. And those that did have a ticket, we in the city of Dortmund, when you came out of the main train station, there was a green carpet. So you cross the road out of the front entrance of the train station, cross the road, and there's a green carpet that goes up some steps, and the staff or the volunteers said, "Follow the green carpet."
I
I
saw
sort of
that on
thought,
Twitter.
what do you mean? Yeah. So literally, you could follow this green carpet and it would take you to the stadium.
So
So
cool.
there were English fans and Dutch fans all walking together. And it crossed my mind at the time. I thought, do you know what? History has unfortunately proved or has said that both of these sets of fans, have got a history. It has to be said. But now we're all walking together. There's orange shirts, and God, there was every Dutchman or Dutch woman was wearing an orange shirt. And we're all walking side by side. No, I heard there was a tiny bit of trouble, but nothing that was too bad by all accounts. But we're all walking along, having a chat, having a beer together. And I thought that was great. We're walking along with the Dutch, and as I say, there were so many of them, and they were everywhere in the stadium in Dortmund. Sort of, they had the yellow wall, which was an orange wall, and then along the to my left as I look, they were all across there, and then even in the top left hand corner, just to my side, there were patches of them all around there. So they appeared to be everywhere. But the Turks, I didn't really encounter many Turks other than in the kebab shops, really, where I tended to have my dinner.
But
But
I bet they
they
were
were
excited.
great. Oh yeah, they're incredibly proud of their country, getting where they were, and there was the possibility that we could have played them in the semi final, which would have been interesting. Put it that way.
Absolutely. You touched on there that there's sort of history between the English and the Dutch. Luckily, it was, all we saw was very, very minimal stuff in Twitter videos, and the same thing I think with the Serbs at the beginning of the tournament. But overall, it looks like pretty much nothing happened involving anyone really, which is a good thing. And it's sort of I think we're heading to a place now where we probably need to stop hyping up the worry over that before every tournament because it always seems to me that going into every tournament. Oh my, this one's going to be really bad. In Russia, in Qatar, this is the one where in Qatar, no way the fans going to be able to go there and be normal. And every time it's sort of we're finding that it's just a tiny pocket of people from England or elsewhere. And basically every tournament's
Yeah,
going off without a hitch. And I guess from your perspective being there, then would you say that yet again it's gone off without a hitch pretty much, involving everyone?
yeah, no, it's that'd be a fair assumption. There are a couple of isolated incidents which seem to have been sort of stamped down on, quickly sort of done around on Twitter, and then were sort of put to one side. But yeah, on the whole, it seems everyone got on well. All these hype stories that we, as you say, hear about prior to a tournament, and I remember loads of them. I remember personally going to Japan in 2002, and the media saying you'll come back bankrupt. Everything's so expensive. I remember going to the South Africa World Cup, and obviously all that came with that. Euro 2012. Sol Campbell was going on about racism. Loads of things get spoken about. I think this time around, the daft thing I heard was that German authorities would clamp down on fake football shirts, which was a strange story. And unsurprisingly, I didn't see anyone being pulled aside just to check the label of the shirt
That's
they
a
were wearing.
ridiculous one. I mean, what would that even be? Is it a crime to wear a fake football shirt?
To be honest, I think it's probably more some sort of rule in Germany about counterfeit or something that someone had just blown up, and for a few days on sort of social media that took everyone's sort of timeline on. But no, everything just seemed to work. And you're right, yeah, it's time that we started sort of praising the countries that are hosting the tournaments, and sort of getting people to go and enjoy it rather than maybe looking over their shoulder so much. I know, like once people are out there for however long they're there for, they probably feel a little bit comfortable and think, do you know what were they talking about? This is the people here are wonderful, fabulous. It's the people I'm with and the people I'm meeting. There's no talk of these potential problems. So yeah, one day it would be nice to go to a tournament and it's just positive sort of vibes ahead of it. But with Canada, the USA and Mexico on the horizon, I personally can't see that one going off without a few stories beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure there's going to be, as always, a lot of hype, but I think in the end it'll go off without a hitch, especially when it comes to fan violence. I think that stuff is dying off more and more each time. But speaking of staying positive, let's end on a high note, and it's a bit of a difficult question, but what would you say have been your three highlights following the Three Lions as an England fan going to these tournaments? What have been the three memories that top it all for you so far?
So far, I mean, just in general, or Germany just gone?
Just in general, over all the years.
Oh, highlights. I mean, there's so many to pin down. Just three. I think probably one of the main things is the opportunity to go and visit some of these countries that I wouldn't have had the chance or maybe the inclination to do so. Tournaments, especially when I think back to 2012 and Ukraine, and realizing sort of what I'd witnessed then, and sort of the country and the people. And now when I see it on the news, I'm in a way I'm grateful that I got to see it in the way it was, but at the same time I'm saddened to see how it is now. And other places along the way where we're following England in qualifiers that I would never have really thought about going to, say Kosovo,
Oh, yeah, that's a good
or
question. What would be the most far-flung places you've seen England in terms of these qualifiers against minnows or places that you never
well,
would have imagined going to?
well, yeah. I mean, as I say, I've been to Kosovo, to Montenegro, Macedonia, but I mean, far flung. I mean, I guess the furthest I've been would be Japan for
Wow.
the 2002 World Cup. I mean, I went all the way there for a 0-0 draw. I went all the way to Cape Town for a 0-0 draw in 2010. Um, yeah, I mean, even those are highlights in their strange ways because, yeah, you just go, you sort of take it in and meet meeting people as well, not just the friends that you meet on the way that become friends for life that you sort of meet up with at every England game, but also people from other nations that you might meet in a bar or have a chat with whilst you're queuing for some food, wherever you may be, and just you just talk football. I mean that it's that universal language, isn't it? We can all just start having a chat, even if it's sort of with someone that can't speak your native tongue. You just reel off a list of players from that particular nation, and you get some smiles, and they come back with Rooney and
It's
Lineker and all
so
that, and
true.
it's
I did that exact
yeah.
thing. I was in Venice about 15 years ago with a few friends, and we were on a night out and we met this group of girls from Argentina, and they couldn't speak English and we couldn't speak Spanish. And all we ended up doing was shouting back to each other. Like we would say like Mascherano, and they go, yeah, yeah, that's good. And then, and then we'd go like Aguero, and they're like, yeah, yeah. And just getting their reaction, like yay or boo, to whoever we read out. That was our only way of sort of, but we'd be smiling, we'd be laughing, and we were like having a good time, even though we couldn't say a single word to each other.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's little memories like that that you just there's no issues, just as you say, smiles and laughs between you all. So I guess yeah, traveling, meeting people, and then just the experience of seeing England, the experience of the elation of seeing Jude Bellingham with an overhead kick that's kept us in the tournament with 30 seconds to go, or Ollie Watkins coming on and scoring a last minute goal to see us through to the final. Just those moments as England fans where your head just explodes, and you just all of a sudden you're dancing and jumping around in the aisles and cuddling people you've never met before, but sort of not caring that their armpit is in your face or something like that. Oh yeah, so some great memories, and hopefully many more to come.
What a beautiful note to end on. I think I'm feeling sufficiently cheered up. Thank you, Russell. It's been an absolute pleasure. And now we look towards some Nations League action in September.
We do, yeah. I'm already booked for Ireland away.
Lovely stuff. I might have to try and get over myself, actually. No excuse not to. Very close. My wife's
Yeah,
desperate to go to Ireland, so might have to take her.
Guinness all round.
Thank you so much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I really appreciate it.
No, no, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Sporticos Football Stories podcast. It was such a pleasure talking to Russell. A much needed therapy session, I think. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I can't wait to bring you more chats with fans from across the footballing landscape, from ex-pros to bloggers, YouTubers, and more. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing. If you really liked it, give us a 5-star review wherever you get your pods. Thanks again, and catch you next time on the Sporticos Football Stories podcast.